Ukrainian Defense Forces and Russian troops engaged in over 40 combat clashes on the 1st of August. Source: General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook. Information is of 6 o'clock on the 2nd of August. Quote: The Russian Federation struck Ukraine with Iranian-made Shahed attack UAVs once again last night. Information on the aftermath of this terrorist attack is currently being established. The enemy carried out 1 missile attack, 75 airstrikes and 68 attacks from multiple launch rocket systems on the positions of our troops and settlements over the past 24 hours. Unfortunately, there were victims among the civilian population. The likelihood of further missile and airstrikes across Ukraine remains very high. Over 40 combat engagements occurred within the past 24 hours. Details: the situation on the Volyn and Polissia fronts remains unchanged. On the Severshina and Slobozhenshina fronts, the Russian forces delivered an airstrike near the settlement of Sopich in Sumy Oblast and deployed mortars and artillery to attack over 25 populated areas. Specifically, these were Zalizny Mist and Holohanivka in Chernihiv Oblast, Shpyl, Unikivka, Atinsk, Basivka and Roshkovichi in Sumy Oblast, and Udi, Kazaka Lopan, Petropavlivka, Nestern and Stroivka in Kharkiv Oblast. On the Kupiansk front, the Russian army deployed artillery and mortars to fire on the settlements of Topoly, Kamyanka, Fyholivka, Vorokna, Zapadna, Kupiansk and Kyslivka in Kharkiv Oblast. On the Lyman front, the settlements of Nevsky, Bilohorivka in Luhansk Oblast and Torsky, Verkhnekamiansk, Spern and Rozdalivka in Donetsk Oblast came under artillery fire. On the Bakhmut front, the Russian troops carried out unsuccessful attempts to regain their lost positions north and west of the settlement of Klishivka in Donetsk Oblast. More than 15 settlements suffered from Russian artillery strikes, including Bodanivka, Chasiv Yar, Orikovo-Vasilivka, Ivanovsky and Bila Hora in Donetsk Oblast. On the Avdiivka front, the Ukrainian Defense Forces successfully repelled the attacks of Russian troops near the city of Avdiivka under heavy fire from their aircraft and artillery. More than 10 settlements came under artillery fire, including Avdiivka, Pervomaisk, Karlivka, Nebelsky and Novobakhmutivka in Donetsk Oblast. On the Marinka front, Ukrainian troops are holding back the Russian offensive in the area of Marinka. The Russians delivered an airstrike near the settlement of Krasnohorivka. They hit over 15 settlements, including Krasnohorivka, Zoryan, Marinka, Hobida and Hostray in Donetsk Oblast. On the Shakhtarsk front, the Russian forces delivered airstrikes in the area in and around the settlements of Blahodatna and Staromayorsk in Donetsk Oblast. They undertook unsuccessful attempts to regain their lost ground east of Staromayorsk. The Russians deployed artillery to fire on the settlements of Vuhledar, Vodian, Blahodatna and Zolotaniva in Donetsk Oblast. On the Zaporizhia front, the Russians are focusing their primary efforts on preventing the further advance of Ukrainian forces. The Russian army delivered an airstrike near the city of Orikhiv in Zaporizhia Oblast. Over 15 settlements came under artillery fire, particularly Novodorivka, Bilahiria, Orikhiv and Kamyansk in Zaporizhia Oblast. On the Kherson front, over 10 settlements came under Russian artillery fire, including Sadov, Tokarivka, Kozatsky, Antonivka, Mikhailivka and the city of Kherson. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Defense Forces remain engaged in offensive operations on the Melitopol and Berdyansk fronts, consolidating their positions and carrying out counter-battery operations. Over the past 24 hours, the Ukrainian Air Force has carried out 8 strikes on clusters of Russian military personnel, weapons and equipment, 1 attack on a command point and 1 more on a Russian anti-aircraft missile system. On the 1st of August, Ukraine's rocket forces and artillery struck 14 artillery pieces at their firing positions, 4 electronic warfare systems, 4 command points, a cluster of Russian weapons and military equipment, 6 air defense systems, 3 clusters of Russian personnel, an ammunition storage point and 2 other major Russian targets. General Staff: Russia attempts counter-attacks near Klishivka, Staromayorsk. Russian forces made unsuccessful attempts to regain lost positions near Klishivka and the recently liberated Staromayorsk in Donetsk Oblast, the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces reported on August 2. In the Bakhmut direction, the enemy made unsuccessful attempts to regain lost positions north and west of Klishivka in Donetsk Oblast, the General Staff commented on the situation. The village of Klishivka is located south of the Russian-held Bakhmut. Russian forces also attempted counterattacking east of Staromyorsk, a village in southwestern Donetsk Oblast, liberated by Ukrainian forces on July 27. Russia also targeted the vicinity of the settlement with airstrikes, the report added. Ukrainian troops are holding positions near Avdiivka and Marinka, repelling Russian advances in the area, the General Staff said. According to the report, Ukraine carries out offensive operations in the Melitopol and Berdyansk directions along the southern front line. In the Zaporizhia direction, Russia is focusing its efforts to prevent Ukrainian advances, the General Staff informed. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said on August 1 that Russia is concentrating its forces along the eastern front line, namely in the Kupiansk, Lyman, and Svatov directions, trying to pull Ukrainian forces away from Bakhmut and stop their advance in that area. We've been working hard to bring you independent, locally sourced news from Ukraine. Consider supporting the Kyiv Independent. Russians try to repel their positions near Klishivka, General Staff report. On the Bakhmut front, the Russians have tried to reclaim their lost position near Klishivka, Donetsk Oblast. Source: General Staff report. Quote, on the Bakhmut front, the Russians made unsuccessful attempts to reclaim the lost position north and west of Klishivka, Donetsk Oblast. More than 10 settlements were affected by Russian artillery attacks, including Bodanivka, Chasiv Yar, Ivanovsky and Bila Hora in Donetsk Oblast. Details. During the day, about 26 combat clashes took place. It is also reported that on the Avdiivka front, Ukrainian defenders successfully repelled attacks of Russian troops in the Avdiivka area. At the same time, the defense forces of Ukraine continue to conduct offensive operations on the Melitopol and Berdyansk fronts, gaining a foothold on the reclaimed territories, and carrying out counter-battery warfare measures. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on August 2 that Russia had lost 247,230 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24 last year. This number includes 540 casualties Russian forces suffered just over the past day.